welcome. Join us today for a second follow-up conversation with Alicia Tornabene about what's been coming alive for us since the ONN State of the Nonprofit Sector event in November. Alicia is the Senior Manager of Community Investment at United Way, Halton and Hamilton. She oversees United Way's three major grant streams, impact data and reporting, and works with supported agencies to engage with and amplify their work. She is a major proponent of the nonprofit sector, as well as community building, and is proud to call Hamilton home. We hope you enjoy our conversations today.
Okay. So hello, Alicia.
Hi, Stephen.
Welcome. This is our third podcast for CDH, and it's focused on the state of the nonprofit sector. We are having this conversation a few weeks out from the Ontario Nonprofit Network event that we helped to facilitate and attended, which brought a lot of folks from the nonprofit sector to have conversations about how they feel about the state of their sector. And this really complements the research that can be found in the Community Data Watch report on the state of the nonprofit sector. But yeah, I'm really excited just to jump in and see what we've been thinking, what's been coming alive for us since then.
Yes, certainly. Happy to have conversation today, and thanks for having me on the podcast. We actually had United Way, Halton and Hamilton had a podcast for like maybe like almost a year, like a couple of years ago. So this is like very exciting. It's like building on that. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It was all about, like having conversations about folks in the sector and trying to give more of a spotlight, because I feel like our sector doesn't often get, the headlines and stuff like that. So this is very exciting. Happy to be here.
Well, hey, we're all in it together, and so it's exciting to be able to have that spotlight. Yeah. So I guess to start with, is there a story that you found yourself telling about the nonprofit sector just in general?
Yeah, I think in the ONN State of the Sector report, like made it so emphasize this more and more, but like something that I've just come to like reflect on and realize and want to talk about more. I've been with United Way for about 8 years now. So like when you started in the sector and I didn't come from a social work background. So I knew of charities. I'm from Hamilton. Like we see the need like blatantly in our face every day. So I was kind of compelled to be part of the sector from like just an empathy standpoint and a caring standpoint. So having been in the sector for so long and connected with so many like skilled, critical agencies, and just seeing the level of like growing demand that's being placed on them, like how critical of a network the nonprofit and charitable sector has become across Canada, I would say. Like when charities and when United Way started in the States, it was kind of like this, we're going to do a coordinated fundraising effort to support these, little church groups or local community groups that are gathering to try to fill some gaps, do some maybe like food drives, do like a social group, and like comparing that to what the sector has become, for better or for worse. Like the charitable sector is an essential part of our communities. They provide healthcare, they provide education, they help people from falling through the gaps in the education system. They help lift people out of poverty, they help connect them to income, they help file their tax. Like the level of like ingrained that the charitable sector has become is so essential now. And I think that's why agencies are feeling like compelled to say, like, what do we do about these social issues? Because they're the ones trying to fill all these gaps in communities, and it's becoming too much.
I like the way you worded it, with kind of going from, like in the past, like nonprofits and charities fulfilled this sort of gap filling role, but they've increasingly become essential parts of the community. And I think a lot of folks may not be aware of that, like that essential role that they play in all these different areas that you've mentioned.
Yeah, like I think we talk about like we're used to being maybe more exposed and talking about like public systems like healthcare and education. We talk about how critical and they're the fabric of our society, but people I think don't really think of charities as like a network, maybe like maybe they've, they know of one or two, maybe they know of BGC, maybe they know of Big Brothers, but the way that all of these programs are working together now and the way they've had to come together and collaborate, especially after the pandemic, there was so much collaboration going on with agencies and really agencies having to do a lot more navigation for clients, that it really is like this behind the scenes, like critical fabric of our communities.
Hmm. Yeah, like when you say navigating, like do you mean navigating systems? Like
Yeah, like just having to navigate them on be for clients, like on behalf of clients, and also to navigate like between social services. So agencies are, very aware of what other agencies exist in their areas and how they can refer clients to get more support, but having to navigate systems for people, having to access benefits for people. So they're also having to navigate whether it's like benefit systems or healthcare systems. So I think that's why we often hear the call of, having to work across sectors to solve issues because
hmm.
yeah, these systems all have to work together if we're going to support people in a holistic way and um, like really change the social, lift these people out of these social issues.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What thread to tug on here? There's a few
A
like
small
really
thought, just a
interesting
little,
points here
little
that
thing
we
I've been
could.
thinking about. Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, okay, so like you'd mentioned that you were part of United Way for the last 8 years.
Mhm.
That's amazing because I've been working for nonprofits I guess most of my adult life,
Mhm.
off and on in part-time, full-time roles, never like in one agency though for that long.
Mm.
So, but I think though, even though my experience is a little bit different, I think what I can really relate to what you're saying is, the ways that like in those roles as an individual worker and as an organization, we're so often working across sectors,
Mhm.
because the people that we're supporting in the community, um, like we all have wraparound holistic needs. We don't have
Yeah.
compartmentalized, um,
Yep.
siloed needs. But I think sometimes the challenge in the way that systems are set up in Canada more broadly is that they
Mhm.
do tend to be a bit siloed, or they can be, in the
Yeah.
way that they're funded or the way that they operate, the information
Yep.
that's shared. And so nonprofits and charities really can be oftentimes those in-betweens.
Definitely. Yes. I just came from a town hall on the National Council advising against poverty reduction. I didn't say that properly, but you get the gist.
Yeah.
And one of the quotes, so they've been going across Canada talking to people that have been living in poverty and agencies and all kinds of institutions that work to support folks that are experiencing poverty. And one of the client like narratives that they pulled out that's a really critical piece. Not only is that like poverty and these systems can happen to anybody, but a lot of the systems that we're having to navigate, whether it's like benefits or healthcare or any of these policies, were established so long ago that we have to keep up with the
Mm,
reality of what people are experiencing in poverty. And they said that poverty that it's being experienced now is just, it feels very different than it did in the past. And I think it has to do with a lot of the fact that like a lot of the systems are not keeping up with the reality of what people are experiencing. It's kind of keeping people in poverty in some cases when it comes to benefits. So I think we have a lot of systems change work to do.
and I mean, I guess to go off of that, just because what you just ended with, in my mind, connects with one of the key themes, that we came across in the ONN, event,
Mm,
that was discussed among nonprofits, and that is, if we think the system or systems need to change or adapt and
mm,
to the shifting circumstances that people experience in the community, um, we've got to find ways to do that together,
yeah.
and like as a nonprofit sector, because I guess we're something that really occurred to me, was just the ways that we are far more connected than not, even if
Yeah.
our services and our programs might be quite different, on paper, but like in terms of the people we serve, like some of the same folks might be accessing services and supports from a multitude of organizations
Yeah.
in one community. And yeah, so I mean, along some of those lines, like, some of the themes we talked about at the event, what's been coming alive for you since then?
Yeah, so yeah, the collaboration definitely. I think agents like there was so much desire for agencies and funders and other municipalities and other groups to engage together on how we address some of these issues, and there was like a willingness to want to move things forward and like what's the next step. I think it's hard because advocacy in like the broad term of like, how do we talk about the importance of the nonprofit sector, like to me is advocacy, but how do
Hmm.
we, since it's not really ingrained in a lot of our mandates, I feel like agencies are trying to like muddle through, like where do we start? Who do we reach out to? Like, is CDH going to take the lead on, all this other
Yeah.
we want to do? So it was really great to have the Ontario Nonprofit Network there as like a like backbone support of that event to be like, here's some of the networks you can engage in and here's some of the movements that are happening. So I think that was really helpful because if we've never done this work before or we want to engage in systems level work and we don't know how, it's really, there's a lot to navigate and it's like, where do we start? So I will say that there's a lot of things happening at agencies that are, you know what I mean, that are really good, important pieces. They just maybe aren't like talked about or like, they don't make news often, but like Support House is doing incredible work through their like Ontario
Mm.
health teams that they've helped established. St. Matthew's House in Hamilton has like a housing project they're working on. So like there's all
Oh.
these like little and through like the nonprofit sector, all these little wonderful, impactful projects that are happening just, kind of behind the scenes. So sometimes it's hard to know where to begin, but I think there's a lot of willingness and like skill and passion behind our sector. So
Willingness, skill, and passion. I need to write that down.
mm.
Um, yeah, I mean, the collective advocacy piece was a really big theme that came up a lot for me at the event. And I like what you said about how advocacy includes literally simply just sharing with the broader community what we're doing, what we're up to,
Yeah.
and and what really serious problems, social economic problems we're working to address.
Yeah.
Because I think, yeah, like I think in that regard, I mean, nonprofits are really kind of a part of the collective resilience of a community in that way.
Absolutely.
Um, and like the value that we have in our capacity to, I think the expression that came up a lot was doing work off the sides of our desks, where
Yeah.
there's just always those projects that we're doing adjacent to our core work, and that
Hmm.
so often we're doing, to borrow Mark's term, Mark Clear's term, like we're doing work for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of what we bring, because we're able to be that efficient. We can get a job done with very little resources, and oftentimes not enough. But we really do hold a powerful role that way.
Yeah. I think too, like our sector is like run on like compassion and like care. So like it's no wonder that we're like stretched so far because an agency is not going to say no to someone like very few examples can I think of an agency like scaling back or, and sometimes that's the case, but like very rarely. So to see everyone's programs become more in demand is sad some way because you're like, these agencies are already, going so far with their budgets and the funding that they get that to see them stretch anymore, like we're at the point where we're scared for the staffing, right? For their capacity.
Mm,
So and I think that's why we have to talk about and do more advocacy and change something with either like the social issues. It's kind of a two-part thing, like advocating for what nonprofits need. So like the stable funding, the like decent work practices to like retain the wonderful like skill stuff that we have, but then also like reducing the social issues like the like poverty and mental health to help reduce the burden on those agencies. So it's like a two-part like effort, I guess, that we need to concentrate on. So yeah, if you
hmm.
have any ideas, let me know, Stephen. I think since then though, I think since the event though, And just in the past like few years at United Way, we're doing more, I would say more engagement with agencies, but also agencies like outside of our funded network. Like naturally we work closer with agencies we provide funding to, but how do we expand that network and really hear from all agencies and learn from what they're going through to not only like advocate on their behalf as well, but just to be engaged and see if there's other things we can support with. Because I think there's a lot of like, and CDH does this as well, that we try to do like some of those extra like capacity building pieces to help alleviate some of the burden on agencies. And I think really doing more of an effort to engage with groups like the ONN and local like collaboratives and the region of Halton and City of Hamilton. We want to do more of that work because I think that's where the systems change piece can happen.
Yeah, like helping one another build our capacities to do the
Yeah,
work that we do well and to do more of it as time goes. Yeah.
yeah,
And I mean, as one really good example, like, like this podcast, like so much of the heart and soul of it is sort of based on, highlighting what work is being done in the community by partnering agencies and friends that we make and just members of the community to share that with a wider audience. And this is made possible because of United Way.
yeah,
And
that's great.
so,
I know
like
that. Great.
it's yeah, and so it's that capacity building is so important. And yeah, I think and at CDH, I know that that's a core tenet of our work in terms of particularly with volunteerism and supporting volunteerism and civic engagement in the community and building the capacity of other organizations to be able to do the work that they
Yeah.
do. Yeah, it's and I think something that the way that I've been kind of coming to understand the conversations we were having at ONN was really around building that kind of social infrastructure. Like the relationships are already there to some extent, and we
Yeah.
can always build them. But building some infrastructure, like whether that means communities of practice in
Yep.
specific areas of research or program admin,
Yep.
whether it's resource sharing and again collective advocacy. Like we have elections
Yeah.
coming up, and so
Yep.
thinking through like what are some of the policy recommendations we might make as a sector based on what we're hearing in the community from the relationships we have with residents.
Yeah, I think, yeah, certainly since being engaged with ONN, it's really helped our capacity to know like what resources are out there, even like guides on like what can agencies do in terms of advocacy, is there restrictions there, has helped our and referring agencies to the ONN's resources. So it's the resources are there, the networks are kind of there. It's just like tapping into which is appropriate for your agency, I guess. So yeah, I certainly want to do more of that engagement work as well. So I think like, and it is all built on relationships because like the care and the reason we're here, like all those like the values like threads us all together. So I think that's why I feel that there's like a lot of momentum in both of our communities to do more collaborative supportive work.
Yeah, that sentiment right there is how I felt coming out of the event was like I was a bit worried just speaking to some of the challenges like and that was definitely a part of the conversations like the challenges that the sector is facing that might be on the increase based on the economy and based on the degree of need in the community. Like there's more demand for services but less resources to provide them, and so that's really a not sustainable.
Yeah.
And so but I think the really powerful thing for me was that people really didn't seem defeated after talking about those things. It really felt momentous, like there was momentum.
Yeah, because I think even when you come together and talk about like your shared struggles or issues, like just the burden that can alleviate, that like you're not the only one, it is like powerful in itself. And like the honesty and the like transparency that a lot of our like agencies bring is so important. Like the shared struggles are like they're really hard. Like we heard from agencies that are they can't even advocate to their own board. Like these are EDs of agencies to have a livable wage themselves. So there's a lot there's a lot of shared struggles that like all staff at every single level of an agency is experiencing. So if we can come together and talk about those shared struggles, we can like it not only like alleviates the whatever guilt or like if you hold that like inside yourself, it's not like it's a systemic issue, right? It's not like anyone's fault. So just
Yeah.
coming together to try to address the issues together or just talk about how did you have this conversation with your board or like how did
Hmm.
you do this compensation review? Like what agency did you use or like how did you get this free service? Like there's so many ideas that come out of doing things together and just talking together that is really powerful. So and that's something that we want to use our space for. And I know CDH feels the same way, but the United Way network, we want to kind of leverage that like convening potential more because there's a lot of
Hmm.
potential there.
Yeah, convening. It's particularly in person if it's whenever it's
Yeah,
possible. Like not that virtual is like there's always a point to it, even if it's virtual to convening, but I think in person, like when we can come together for things like that face to face, it's
yeah,
something more connection comes out of that work. And yeah,
certainly.
it's great to be able to do it.
Hmm. How
Yeah.
have you found like I feel like our the nonprofits are so driven by like the people at the agencies and in their roles. So it feels like you've brought like a lot of yourself to your role. Like, are you enjoying that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, definitely, yeah. The short answer is yes. I I mean, I'm a person that I really struggle in any kind of role that doesn't feel super aligned with like either who I am or what I value as a person,
Mm,
which generally involves like community and um, supporting equity and inclusion,
yeah,
all those things. And yeah, I think that's maybe why I've always felt quite at home in the nonprofit sector because I feel like
yeah,
whatever I have to bring, I can bring it and it's valued. And also
yeah.
that a lot of the values of the organization, they tend to align with what is really important to me.
Hmm.
Not to demonize for-profit enterprise at all, but just that for me, I've found the environments within nonprofits to be particularly conducive to where I might be able to do
Yeah.
my best
There's like
work.
genuine willingness and still certainly lots of barriers, but there's a lot of genuine people in our sector, which is very special to nonprofits,
Mm,
I think. And I know we were both at the Intimate Partner Violence Community Pledge event, and just like the collaborative work that's been going on there is so exciting to like that's such a I guess no, I don't know if it's an uphill battle, if that's the right phrase to say, but there's so many intersecting like systems that survivors of violence have to come up against, like the legal system, the justice system, navigating counseling and mental health. And
mm,
that was so encouraging to see not only like the collaboration with the sector, but like such genuine folks that are there, like really making a concerted effort to say like this is important and in like a sector where like there's so much emotional burden for people to show up and like and you know what I mean, just continuing to do the work is it's like it's encouraging, but it's also like we know that there's like emotional labor behind it, but it is so encouraging. And I think like the things that you said about it aligning with your values and you feeling like you have a place here is a lot of the same way that I feel.
oh, I'm glad to hear that too. Yeah, and maybe that's something a lot of us share, It's like uh just and especially too if we come to the roles that we have from our own lived experience, like that's
Mm.
quite related to something, right? Like that's quite vague, but like yeah, I can
No,
think of
I
a
totally hear you. Like before this role, I was doing lots of volunteering, like Wesley Mission Services. I was like,
oh,
there's too many issues. There has to be a place, maybe outside of government, that there can be like a collective
mm,
solution or like a pathway. And then I ended up at United Way. So like there's things certainly happen for a reason. And yeah, like I feel like there is good momentum behind like so many social movements and our sector's work that it's it's inspiring. And like being a part of like seeing all the like people that the really inspiring like leaders of these agencies is like an honor, you know.
Some of the best mentors some of the best mentors I've had in this life have been like,
Yeah,
yeah, directors, managers, people in the nonprofit sector that I've gotten
yeah,
to learn from and work under. And
totally.
yeah, and I think, I was gonna say, no, I might have lost it.
That's okay. It's near the end of the day.
Oh yeah, and it's not even Friday. Oh no.
Inspiring mentors, agency leaders. What was
And
before that?
values, and
Yeah.
oh, maybe it'll come back. That's okay if it doesn't.
Oh, my like finding a collective way to address issues, my volunteering before United Way.
Oh, yes. Well, we were speaking to the value of nonprofits as maybe another space outside of government and outside of, that can meaningfully address. I mean, government can meaningfully address a great many things.
Absolutely.
But I think there's something special about the role nonprofits often play in our communities that's very relational. Like we
Yeah,
we tend to have, I hope this is fair to say, like more like kind of closer relationships and connections with people in the community, person to
definitely.
person,
And
maybe just by lieu of
yeah,
us being there,
I
like
think
physically.
that's like because our like sector like it runs on compassion. Like we're here like
Hmm.
because we care. Like that like putting the heart first. I think that's what like so many systems are missing, and that's why they don't support people. Like it's really actually like kind of simple when you think about it that way, and that's why our sector is wonderful.
Well, hey, it's
In
one of the things we
summary,
bring to the table, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, well, maybe that'll be a good spot to end. Like,
sure.
do you have any, like, maybe some final thoughts, or do you feel
Yeah, I think we
pretty good about
covered a
that?
lot. I think, yeah, I think it's like nice to be able to like reflect on some of these things and like just have conversation. Like, thank you for making space for the conversation because
Oh,
it's like the, the go work and it's nice to sit back and have a conversation about these types of things. And I always go deep with the conversation, so can't help it.
oh no, I'm not complaining. I get existentialist very quickly, so
Love it.
maybe I didn't so much here, but I could. Love to talk about
Okay,
philosophy
Stephen.
and all that good stuff, but
Another time.
another time. But thank you so much, Alicia. This was fabulous. And yeah, I look forward to more conversations about what role we can play as individuals and as agencies, and to kind of keep being there for our community.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephen.
Likewise.